Hello, we're back. Talk with Eminem and our lovely guest, Marcy, Nahid, and Miriam.
Hello, Eminem listeners.
Thank you for coming after work, and that means a lot. She works so late, and I think she get off like around 6, and we try to feed her.
It was lovely. It was worth it.
But yeah, thank you so much. And we wanted Nahid in our podcast for a long time. And I'm very delighted to have you with us. And it's going to be a very interesting session. It's our 20th podcast.
Oh,
Yes, you.
I'm so special.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Hi, Marcy.
Hi, Mariam and Nahid. And then we've always been calling you Nahid, or at least I was, because we have the same name in Farsi, but it's Nahid, right?
Nahid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the right
and everybody calls
pronunciation
me
is
Nahid.
Ah, okay. That's even
And
worse.
they call me other things too, but Nahid is in Arabic and Nahid is in Farsi.
Uh-huh.
And we will agree on that.
Which one do you like better?
Nahid.
Nahid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct one.
Okay.
That's right. She has a lot of Persian friends, but
It's so funny that we were talking with one of the friends that they introduced me a guy from Cairo. And his name was Ash. His name is Ash. And I asked him, what is your name? He says Ashraf. And I was like, Ashraf, that's a guy name? My aunt's name is Ashraf.
but in
Really?
Arabic it's a guy.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
definitely
I think in a different culture, female and male name are changed, and sometimes you see people that I hear a lot that they use like a different name for male and female. Anyway,
Absolutely.
okay, back to the podcast and why you're here. We want to know a little bit about your life. We know little about you. We know you for a long time, but honestly, that's a reason that we have this podcast. We want to know more about the people that we love, we adore, and sometimes, we don't know anything about their life. And you see just the faded color of your life. It's a painting that it's not clear. Now, for our actually audience, our little audience that they are listening to us, and one of them dearly, she's been following us. It is our friend that she was the reason that we know you.
Oh,
Yes.
solely.
Yeah.
Yes, solely.
Yeah, we always have a shout out to Soli.
Yeah.
She's the
Absolutely.
glue to a lot of good friendships around. Yeah.
Exactly.
She's a wonderful human. Yeah.
She is. We want you to start. This is our first question always, and everybody says, "Okay, what am I supposed to do? What we want to say? What is the story?" We want to tell us how far you can remember yourself. That's the first question that we ask. What is the first memory that you can remember from yourself?
That's a really great question because that's a question that I ask in therapy people all the time. That's funny that you're asking me because nobody has asked me that question before. I think a pretty clear memory that I'm pretty sure I didn't make it up was my first day of kindergarten. So I was a young kindergartner because my birthday's late in the year. So I went to kindergarten when I was 4. I started kindergarten when I was 4. And I remember walking up the stairs at this really old school, as an old building, not an old school itself. And I just remember it being very crowded, and I was kind of like overwhelmed and got up to the top of the stairs, but my teacher was waiting for me. It's weird how I just remember seeing her and feeling like, oh, I'm safe. Here's this wonderful lady who's going to be my teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
This is your first memory.
I
and
believe so. I don't remember. I don't know why I don't have anything
That's interesting.
before then.
I'm going to ask you later, but this is very interesting that sometimes we don't know the things that we remember. Is it something that they've been tell us, like, our parents, or we saw the picture and this is part of a picture that we create that memory, or it's a real memory? I always have this hazy question or hazy thing. You will tell us.
Is there any way to distinguish that and understand? Is it an actual memory, or did we make it up, or did we create it after we heard about it?
Well, and I mean, from my field in the psychology and memory, it's a very tricky answer to tell people, no, that was a true memory, I'm pretty sure, because we could never be sure. How could you be sure? We just don't hyper focus on, was it true or was it not, but what did it mean to you?
Right.
And, if it was shady, what do you remember about it, and what did it remind you of?
Correct.
And we don't really question the truthfulness of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We just make it true to you.
Correct.
If it was true to you.
Okay, I want you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell them what do you do right now, and then we're going to go back again and we're going to start from the beginning.
Okay. I am a marriage and family therapist. I work with couples and individuals and children and adolescents and families. Specialized and certified in sex therapy because I work with a lot of couples, and that's always helpful, and I find it fascinating. So when I define myself for my job, I used to teach at university. I stopped lately after COVID. Didn't enjoy that experience. And I also sit on the board of the Boys and Girls Club to help children in our poor area to have an after-school program. We fundraise and kind of cheer them on. But that's kind of like my professional life right now. It's consumed by those three.
Great things. Wow, that's exciting. Okay. I didn't know about that sex therapy. That was the fun part.
It's always the fun part. People think that it's really fun, only if they knew it's mostly, people have trauma related to that topic. Sometimes it's, fun. Let's bring the sex back into the bedroom. But unfortunately, most of the time, it's pretty traumatic conversations.
It is. Very true.
To hear about all of that.
Oh, yeah. You want to?
You go ahead.
Okay. Tell us where you come from, Nahid. I bet you have a lot of story to tell. Where did you go to school? How did you ended up here? I don't want to say anything because I kind of know where you are coming from. I want them to hear from you.
Okay. Well, at this point in my life, I, always wonder when people say, I'm so proud to be whatever, this country. But I really am, I don't want to say I'm proud because I don't know what I would be proud. I was born there. But I feel very privileged to have been born in Syria and lived there for 26 years of my life. And it was a really wonderful experience. I consider it made me who I am. And I say it's a privilege because it just opened my mind to so much variety of what things can go wrong in life and how things can go right. And so, yeah, I was born there, lived there with my brothers and parents. And, life happened. A lot happened in my life. And I ended up, when I was 26, I ended up working at an international center, there's 13 international centers in the world that present themselves in third world countries that need help with their agriculture. And one of them was in Aleppo, Syria, my hometown. Because Aleppo is very dry, and they came to help the whole region improve agriculture in dry areas.
Wow.
So people they can eat. Wheat is the main crop in Syria. So they were helping them sustain the, growth of wheat, despite the fact that there's no rain, hardly any rain, only like a couple of months a year. So anyway, circumstances forced me to work. I guess I started working there when I was 22, maybe 21, 22. And I met this guy who was a student from Germany who was doing research at the International Center. And we kind of sort of, it's a funny story how we met.
Okay, we can't wait to hear
It's a very
that.
funny story. So, I mean, we met at work. We would say good morning, whatever. He had a girlfriend, I think. I kind of sort of had a boyfriend. And then one of my friends from work had left to go to New Jersey. She got married to somebody and went to live in New Jersey. And I really missed her. I was going through some really just kind of bored with life and just dead end, and felt like I'm just an administrative assistant at this fancy, center that I really meant nothing to me. I was going still to college and kind of trying to graduate. And so one time my friend sent me a letter, and I had written her a letter. We used to write letters back then,
Oh, yes.
And and she said, "Why, you sound really kind of bummed out. Why don't you come out and visit me?" And I was like, ha, 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 how can I get a visa? That's really easy for you to say. And she was like, oh, just go try, So he was passing in front of me, and I was laughing about, like, just come, go try. And so he was like, oh, and he knew her. He worked with her, before. And I said, oh, this letter is from Magda, and she's invited me to New Jersey. And he was like, oh, you should go. And I was like, really? How am I gonna get there? Like, he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you can't get a visa, I'm Syrian. And he was like, well, I have an American passport, I can get you into the embassy easily. And I was like, I don't think so. He was like, sure, I can pretend that something's wrong with my passport, and then I'll take you in there with me, and then they'll say, and I'll say, oh, thank you for adding pages to my passport. By the way, this is my friend. Can you please give her a visa? And I was like, oh, really? That's how we're going to do this? It's like, yeah. So I was like, okay, sure. So we drove together to Damascus, which is 5 hours away. Crazy kids. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do, even though the line outside the embassy was, like, wrapped around the building. And, I mean, we would have never gone in. People just stand and hope that the door was going to open and they're going to let them in and their turn is going to come. And here I am. He's flashing his American passport. So we go in. Oh, wow. He tells the lady, I need pages on my passport, even though he didn't. She was like, okay, fine, we'll fix that. And then he was like, my friend. And then she yelled at both of us as loud as she could. And she kicked us out. She was like, how dare you? You tricked us. And we were just like, bye. I was like, I told you, it's not easy. And he was like, oh, wow, I have no idea. I was like, yeah, you just have no idea.
You can't play the friendship
That's
here.
right.
Oh my God.
Things are a lot
I was
serious.
really waiting to see what's going to happen because I didn't believe they would.
Oh,
actually,
she was livid.
Like, did it actually
and
happen?
I mean, understandably so, but she was livid with him. She just gave him back his passport. He was like, you're just playing this. And yeah, so we went to lunch, and we drove back home. We were just like,
5 hours.
just 5 more hours, same day, day. Ha ha ha. Oh. And then when we went back, he was like, oh, I really like you. Do you want to go out on a date with me? That kind of thing.
And you were both with the boyfriend and girlfriend.
No, at that time, I think we had
nothing.
Been,
oh, okay.
Yeah. When I first met him, because I worked for 4 years until we actually started, like, that happened. Mm-hmm. We were just colleagues. Yeah. He works at a different department. I would just see him at work. I was really confused because he's German and American, and he wore cowboy boots all the time, but everybody knew him as German. I was like, why is the German guy wearing cowboy boots and sometimes a cowboy hat? He's not even from Texas. And then I understood that his family are Germans who had immigrated to the United States.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's what it is.
He kind of played it cool. He was like, goes back and forth.
That is amazing.
What a small
I
world.
know. And he's one of the sweetest, kindest people I've ever met.
he's
Unfortunately, we never
pretty
got
good.
to really spend much time in getting to know
Aw.
him. But you guys are always really sweet and beautiful together.
He likes you guys a lot,
Oh,
by
that's
the way.
we should all hang out soon.
Definitely.
So you
He
guys
is
have
a very
been
sweet
married
guy.
for how many years?
32 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's
And
beautiful.
almost 33.
Wow.
Then you married over there, or you?
We got married over there, and you know, just no big deal in an office. Actually, even we started dating, which in Syria means we got engaged, and then so we got engaged in August, meaning we really started dating seriously in August, and in January of 1991, the first Iraq War started.
Oh,
So all the employees of that international center were like, you need to leave Syria. This is dangerous. So he got a letter from the embassy that said, you have to leave. It's dangerous. He was like, you have to go with me. And I was like, no, we're not. You go ahead. You go right ahead. You know, I'm not going anywhere. Plus, nothing's going to happen because I know, you know, nothing's going to happen in Syria. This is just
yeah, it was far. Iran and Iraq.
It was between
Iraq
it was
and
in Iraq.
Kuwait.
It was
Yeah.
Kuwait.
Kuwait,
and
yes,
Iraq.
yeah,
They were
because I
fighting.
thought it was like Iran
Yeah,
and Iraq. It was
no,
in
it was
19.
before
Yeah,
that.
Iraq and
No,
Kuwait.
it was
yes.
Iraq and Kuwait. It was very short.
Yeah,
But you know, people like
yeah.
his mom was freaking out. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what does Syria have to do with this? So he was like, no, you have to leave with me. And I was like, no, I can't leave. I'm not married to you. I can't leave my country. I'm not leaving my family during a wartime. He was like, well, they said they're going to do nuclear weapons. And I was like, well, then I'll just die with my family and nobody's going to drop a nuclear weapon. Come on, man. So he was like, no, but I don't want to leave you behind. I would feel so bad. Back and forth, like a whole day talking. And then he was like, let's just get married then. If I married you, would you go with me? And I was like, sure. So he was like, okay. So we went and got married.
Oh, wow.
Literally, like, went to an office, got married.
Same day?
Same day.
Oh my goodness.
And
Wow.
then 2 days later, we started packing. Like, I was leaving with him to go to Turkey, where all the employees had gone. And then first we got a message from the employees in Turkey, don't come here because they're bombing wherever we are. We were like, that's strange. So, okay, go to Turkey. So we're like, oh, but what are we going to do? Now we got married. And then the Syrian president basically announced that he's just not going to get involved. And everybody needs to settle down. And, you know, the expats need to stay. And it's just safe. And we were like, oops, too late now. Yeah.
That's the best reason to get married.
Yeah.
These little accidents are creating our life.
Fate. I believe
They're
in
kinda
fate.
and they're testing. They're testing the love because that's how you know you actually care about someone enough to do something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I feel like it was fate. Like everything would go so smoothly, you know. I would say to him, well, then you have to come talk to my mom. He's like, okay. I'm like, is this guy crazy? It's like he never said no to any. It's like, okay, fine. Okay, you're going to have to talk to my dad now. Okay. Where is he? It's like, what? What's wrong with this guy? Yeah. So it went very smoothly. And then when that happened, it was like, okay, this was just meant to be.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
That's a man that belongs to the different generation.
Oh.
Seriously,
I love that.
yes,
I love that.
yeah, and that's the beauty. I think we're getting further and further from what was so beautiful back then, and right now, this new generation, I hear all the time that they break each other's heart so easily and so selfishly. You know,
Making commitments,
Yeah.
sticking around, trying to fix things.
Overthinking
It doesn't.
things.
Yeah, it doesn't
Correct.
mean much to people anymore. To the new generation.
That's true.
As soon as something doesn't work, people just walk away. Whether it's their job or their love life or whatever they're going through, nobody's sticking around to fix anything anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I know that from my business, but I also feel like, it takes a certain person to, be courageous. Like Peter is a very explorative person. He's not scared. Like, let's go here and find out what's going on. There's no planning. There's no fear about is it going to work out or not. And that's just
who he is.
Yeah. I think it takes a certain person.
Good. And then after that, you guys finally went back and got the visa with the same
This
people.
time for real. Yes. Yes.
Did you saw?
We
like,
did.
It's just, yeah, okay. You
She was
saw her
there.
again.
Yes. We had to be interviewed separately, like on that movie, whatever it was called. Green Card? Right?
Yes.
What's it called? Green Card? We had to be separate. Yes. We did. 2 windows, though, not like inside an office. We said, yeah. Yeah.
Then you guys kind of lived a little bit of your marriage in Syria.
In Syria. We lived there almost for a whole year.
Oh, okay.
We got married in January. We left in September. I'm sorry, the war was in 1990 because I left Syria in 91. I think. No, maybe it was 91. Yeah, we got married in 91. The war was in 91, and we left in September of 91. So we were there for 9 years, 9 months married. And then he got a job with a sister international company in Mexico.
Oh.
And that we left Syria to go to Mexico.
Wow.
To work. He we came to the States just to visit his family on the way to Mexico. And actually pick up the visa from New York City to Mexico, but that was a work visa that they had issued us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I came just for a month to meet his family, to go to New York and pick up the visa. And then we went to Mexico, which was very difficult for me. That was a really,
big change.
A very big change. Very big.
How long you guys stayed there?
2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were working there too?
I didn't have a work visa, so I learned Spanish instead. I wasn't allowed.
Another thing, we didn't know that you speak Spanish.
Yeah. And I never knew that I was going to use my Spanish. I was like, this is just for fun, I'll learn Spanish, and then I would have never guessed that I was going to end up living in California.
Are you fluent now to the point?
Pretty good.
Do you actually have
Spanish-speaking clients?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I went to school. I went to school and, Actually, the company paid for us to go. They wanted us to speak Spanish. But, they thought we were going to stay longer, but we didn't.
Wow. And then after 2 years, you guys came back to...
His contract ended, and funding was changing with those centers, and we, didn't have a job at that point. We flew to LA. This was before we lived in California. This had nothing to do with us living here now. We just flew to LA because that was a starting point. He, Mr. Explorer, came up with this idea that we're going to fly to LA. We bought a beat up car, little Honda. And then he was like, we have nothing to do. Let's go all over the United States. So
we're talking about what year?
This was 93, end of 93.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We bought a car. We started. He took me everywhere in LA, Disneyland, Hollywood, all that stuff that is just down the street now. And then we drove up the coast, the Pacific coast, visited every friend, every famous something to say, Yosemite, national parks. Our goal was to visit all of our friends, anybody we know along the way, and go to all the national parks.
That's amazing.
This is so good.
That was fantastic. Camping. Didn't have money to stay in hotels. Only when it was really cold or rainy, we stayed in hotels. But we camped the whole way. It was amazing. Went up the Pacific coast, crossed Washington, dropped down, South Dakota, whatever.
Oh, wow.
Mount Rushmore, then Chicago area. We had a lot of friends there. And, with 6 weeks on the road. Covered most of the national parks that we could. Wow. And then got home just about Thanksgiving to be with the family, with his family. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania was the home.
Was his parents' house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened? How did you guys ended up coming to California?
So we lived with them for a year, I think, somewhere around there, until he found a job. And it was hard for him to transition from that international system that he was into. Like, he hasn't been in the States for a long time. So he adjusted, applied for jobs, thought he wanted a kind of job, didn't work out, applied for different jobs. And then he got a job with a company, a breeding company in Mississippi. So we were ready to be on our own. So we moved to Mississippi.
Wow.
Yeah. We lived there for 4 years. He worked there.
Ooh. Hot and humid.
Hot and humid and different, and loved it and hated it at the same time. Lots of good things about it. Lots of things I couldn't adjust to. And it was what it was. Our daughter was born there.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was, we had a really nice home for $500 a month mortgage. So, which
500.
probably still $500 a month. So it was beautiful, and it was hard at the same time. But, we put our time in, and then he was unhappy with that job. So he started applying for other jobs, and he got the job in California. So now we've been here for 24 and a half years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So this is, as much as I've lived in Syria, I've lived in California.
California.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. And when and how did you get interested in, when did you start studying for the major that
Oh, right. So I had a mechanical engineering degree from Syria.
Oh, wow.
So in Syria, when you go to college, before you go to college for the 12th grade, you take this really, really giant exit exam to graduate high school, basically. It was really hard. They tested you on everything that you've ever learned your whole, those 12, 13 years in school. Really hard. 5 books of math, 3 books of physics. It's just like, for an entire year, I just stayed in my room and I studied for this test. And then according to that score, then you can apply to certain universities. So you don't get to pick, basically.
I
so
love that system.
It's kind of the same as us.
I don't know about
It's
that.
concours.
Well, but you don't have to do that in Iran. You don't have to do that in order to graduate high school. It's just in order to enter.
Oh, is this to be able to graduate or
No,
to
enter
To
university.
enter
Okay.
university.
Okay.
That's
To
the same
decide
thing.
what
So
university
it's the
you
same.
can
Yes,
go
yes.
to.
So it is the same.
We have exactly the same system. They call it concours. I don't know what is yours.
Yeah.
I don't know if it hasn't, you just like the total of your grades. It's like out of, it changed now, the numbers of whatever. But they also rate careers by their importance.
Exactly.
So it's like doctor, of course, medical
Highest.
school is the highest, followed by pharmacy, dentistry, and then even engineering is
The highest.
the highest is civil, then architecture, then electrical, then mechanical.
Right.
And I'm like, no, mechanical is the hardest. And then, then you go down to the economics, and law actually is not very high, strangely enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And, it's just like you study, you just want the high score, and then you get the high score and you're like, but I don't want to be a doctor. It's like, and then you're like, what do you mean you don't want to be a doctor? Then you have to be an engineer. And it's like, but I don't want to be an engineer. So anyway, so I got enough grades. All my girlfriends and I had almost the exact same grade because we studied together all the time. And we all went to mechanical engineering. And then they were there for 2 weeks and they were like, no, we're not doing this. And I'm the only one who stayed.
Wow.
Yeah, they went to English literature, and some of them went to like business school. And I'm like, no, I'm staying here because I like math. And then my life kind of changed from there on because I kind of split from my friends. And I mean, I would see them, but it was just different. And I met a different group of people, and my life really took a turn. So yeah, but I also struggled to finish because it was really, really hard, and there were some family circumstances that interfered. But so yeah, I got my degree, and then when I came with Peter, I couldn't, I didn't work in Mississippi. No, I didn't work in Pennsylvania, I temped because we never knew when we were going to move. Mexico couldn't work. Mississippi, I also temped because I was trying to have a baby, had the baby. And then, I had another child when my son, when we moved to California. And then when he was like 2, I was like, okay, I need to have a career, but I don't want to be an engineer anymore. In Mississippi, I did work as an engineer. I did actually work as an engineer. And I hated it. I hated it. I hated every minute of it, especially mechanical. Like I was literally always near machines and working with machines. I was like, I don't care. I don't care if the machine broke. And I don't care how it's designed either. And I would always find myself talking to the people like that operated the machines, like, hey, how's your wife? How are your kids?
It was the human connection.
Yeah,
that was
exactly. I just didn't care. So then, I don't know. I started looking into, when I was in Mississippi, I don't remember why, but I was looking into like, what can I go back to school and do? Social work, it was just like social work. I would literally read the brochures from the universities, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I don't know why. But then when I came here, I started seriously looking, and I found a program in Northridge that had an outreach here in Camarillo. Mm-hmm. It had it's a Northridge program, but the classroom was in Camarillo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I didn't even have to go. And I had to do, because I didn't have an undergrad in psychology, I had to do some prerequisites. Mm-hmm. So did that. And slowly but surely, my kids were little, and then and then I went back to school.
Wow.
Then you graduated from Northridge.
I did.
Huh.
My degree's from Northridge.
Me too. It's just that's where I went. Yes, it is. Yeah. And it's expanded so much. I don't know when you visited. Yes. Mm-hmm. Lately, they made it so beautiful and big, and oh God, their auditorium is so beautiful. They have a lot of programs lately. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you were graduated, and then right after that you started, because I think you guys have to pass 1,000 hours.
We have to intern, do basically a practicum for 3,000 hours. So
3,000.
That took me 4 years, 3 years and a half, and then I have to take 2 board exams, and you have to pass really hard exams. Not as hard as that high school exam. And, you get licensed. And once you have... those board exams were for licensing reasons. Mm-hmm. And then I always knew I was going to work in private practice. Mm-hmm. And when I was interning, I also dabbled with a lot of, different issues. I worked with domestic violence, sexual assaults, agencies. I worked with attachment, foster care, and adopted children. And then I worked at hospice, where we supported families who were losing someone to end of life issues, chronic illnesses. And then towards the end of the 3,000 hours, I joined a private practice that was in Camarillo. That was a really nice group of therapists. And I asked one of them to supervise me, and we became friends. And then he said, when you get licensed, you and I are going to, split off this private practice and maybe start. And I just realized as I'm talking to you guys that my very first client in the private practice was actually Persian family.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
So intense. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
I think it was my first family to work with who were of Middle Eastern background.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And oh God.
Yeah, and I think, the 2 things. First of all, I think one of your specialties is grief, is also, right?
Yes. Yeah, because I worked at hospice. Okay. Yes.
And then I like that you're saying that about that family, because I don't know how many clients that you have that are kind of close to this culture, but I think that closeness in the culture, probably, different parts of Middle East, we all have different cultures, but we're kind of close. So I think understanding where they're coming from and what they've been through, does that actually help to understand their situation more, or no, is it?
Well, they appreciated, I mean, people from Middle Eastern background, just like when I would go to a therapist, I would if I couldn't find a Middle Eastern therapist, which I didn't, you would have to explain to them what is wrong with that situation before they explain to you what's wrong with you, and it was like, well, there goes half an hour. Right. So they appreciated somebody who's a Middle Eastern. They didn't even need to explain because they knew that I understood.
Exactly.
So they would say, remember this event or remember this war or remember this trauma. And I would know exactly what they were talking about. And then we just move on because I knew exactly how that could have affected them. Sometimes I didn't, I worked with an Iranian couple that I didn't know that how they escaped and what mountains they literally, that was like, I learned some new stories, but it was, just like that particular area where they grew up and how they walked over the mountains to go to Turkey or, that was fascinating. But I understood what trauma is because, in Syria, there's a lot of Palestinian refugees from the time I was growing up, and there's Armenian refugees.
Yes.
So there's people from all over the world. So that concept and of course, Syria had been in war and Syria had been in a civil war. So it was just all very familiar language that you can speak to someone. So.
Exactly.
Wow. I have a million questions and I don't want to get out of the loop right now because I just want to finish with your life story first. Then you started right away, and then in the middle of just the craziness of world and everything, you start your therapy and you started your own firm office, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And then you were practicing, and at the same time also you were teaching. When did you start teaching?
Actually, on this, it's really funny. I always tell people in the States, I never applied for a job. I was always invited to join. Oh, wow. And maybe because I'm considered a minority and they had to, keep it on their books. I don't know why. But I started my own, after I, partnered with that individual who had invited me, I ended up kind of going out on my own, although he helped me a lot. But I just found that I wanted to work by myself. Have my own space. I just liked my own space. And in the same year that I opened my private practice, a professor from Cal Lutheran, he's a local university, he called me and he was like, our culture diversity professor is white from the Midwest, and she's never left the United States. And I'm just finding it very hard that she should be teaching this class. I'm kind of embarrassed. And I was like, good for you. He goes, well, can you teach it? And I was like, when does it start? I'm going to Syria. I'm always like, all my plans are according to, I'm going to Syria in the summer. I don't know how I can help you. And it just worked out. I was, it was at a time where I would be back from my vacation in Syria. And I started teaching cultural diversity. That's my first class. And then I started teaching other classes, and I stayed there for about 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Pepperdine.
No, Cal Lutheran.
Cal Lutheran.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that. Mm-hmm.
I was there for 9 years. I taught on main campus, and then I requested to just stay in Oxnard. The drive was getting hard. And then during COVID, I also taught at a private university in Santa Barbara. It's called Antioch.
Oh.
I taught there during COVID, and I kind of assistant taught at a university called Pacifica, also in Santa Barbara. So I dabbled with, they all have very different approaches in therapy, which, very specific to our profession. And I had to kind of model their approach,
Right.
But it was very interesting. It's really nice to build relationships with people. I just cracked up just yesterday. My daughter got a job. She's a therapist now. She just graduated, and she got a job, and she was reading me the email that she got from the firm, from the agency, and she was reading the whole email, and she was like, and your supervisor will be so and so, and I was like, ha ha ha. She was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, that's my student and was my intern. She's gonna be your supervisor. I just thought it was so. I just made my heart so happy.
That
Oh my
is so
gosh,
cute.
I know.
Congratulations.
It was
That's
so cute.
amazing. Oh, that's the best feeling
Yeah.
in the world.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Tell us about your family.
My American family or my Syrian family?
All of
That's what
them.
I call them.
Whatever you want to share with us.
Oh.
We're not going to force you to tell us.
I just, there's two Nahids. There's the American girl and there's
Yep.
the Arabic girl, and she plays, that's, I'm sure you guys understand that, right? They're both really lovely people, good people.
Yes, we love both of them.
Yeah, my husband, he's wonderful. He has his job, and my kids are 26 and 23. They both graduated. It was really an amazing trip to raise both of them. They're very different people, and you just have to kind of go with who they are and with their flow and what they needed, and you're watching generations change and you look at how they handle their own struggles in life, and how I was at their age and how they are now at their age, and we're so different. Mm-hmm. I always tell my daughter, if you lived my life, you would be dead now, because you just couldn't. You wouldn't be able to survive. You would be like, that's too many things. I just could handle a couple. So no, thank you. And it's hard. It's hard to watch them, be, I don't want to say privileged, but I think they are privileged, to have access to everything they needed, and they still seem to be not knowing, if this is happiness or not. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really insight that I'm looking at the generation of like the Gen Zs and the millennials, and just watching the generations change. And now, I work with teenagers, and it just, it's very interesting to watch how the generations are changing. It makes me feel old, but it also makes me feel like, wow, life really does change from decade to decade. Mm-hmm. Each generation come with their own belief system and resiliency and difficulty and what they consider trauma and what they don't.
Exactly.
So that has been fun to watch. Mm-hmm. But, I'm very proud of my kids. They're responsible, and most importantly, they're very kind, and that's the most thing that I care about. It's like they're good people. That's all I care about. Yeah, and I play tennis, which apparently means I am going to have longevity in my life, because it's a sport that apparently makes you live longer.
That's why you haven't changed a bit.
That's right.
I
I don't know about that. My tennis friends are my family also. I don't have family here, so my tennis friends and my colleagues are like family to me, because I don't have family. And it's been really amazing to have that privilege for me. And in Syria, my family is my mom and my brother. It's a very small family. My parents were divorced. My dad passed a long time ago.
Oh.
And, we're very, very, very close. And I have a special relationship with each of them. And my niece and nephew, in Syria, my nephew now lives in Belgium. He's traveled and had to get out during the war and whatnot. And, when I go home, I'm going to always call it home. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Syria. I just feel complete happiness, like nothing measures to this. I don't care how chaotic and dirty and loud and hot and sweaty. It's just...
It's home.
It's perfectness.
It's home. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. Actually, Marzi, should we stop right now and then,
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, or you want to go? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to stop for right now.